It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Welcome to the HVACR videos live stream. Hello, everybody. It's been a while. Life's been crazy. Work, summer happened. Yeah, all that good stuff. And I've been exhausted. I think I missed a few videos too, here and there. Missed a few overtime streams. If you guys don't know, I do a show with my friends on Friday evenings called the HVAC Overtime Show. It is on the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel. It is a cool show where it's just a bunch of guys after work that kind of talk about work sometimes, and then sometimes we talk about nonsense. It's very uncensored. If you're interested in the show, you definitely don't want to watch it if you get your feelings hurt easily, or if you don't like bad words, because yeah, it's definitely nothing like this channel. But yeah, you guys should check it out for sure. It's a good show. Again, though, I don't know, like with my crazy schedule, I don't know if I'll be there this week, because I would like to be. I'd like to say that I'll be there, but you just never know with work and everything. And that's just how it is. Summertime, all that. For the longest time, we weren't really hitting summer very much, and here in SoCal, but it hit us with a vengeance. We're doing pretty good now with the heat and stuff. So hello to everybody in the chat. Lots of great people in there. It's really awesome. Will Speed, Jason Johnson, Joe Fiducioso, Tom Lech, wow, Keith Peterson, Simon Harvey. Hello to everybody. Al Anonymous. Wow, man, so many great people. And I know there's lots more. I just can't name everybody because there's a grip of people in there. But thanks so much for coming to the show. So going to go over a few things as usual. Let me go ahead and start this off right. If you have any questions or comments or things that you want to address towards me, put them in caps lock, all capital letters, because there's a huge conversation that goes on in the chat. And oftentimes there's so much going on that I don't even know if the conversation's for me. And I totally encourage that. This chat is there for you guys, to everybody have, just communication and stuff. It's a great way to communicate with each other. So, but if you have something specific for me, put them in all capital letters, and or shoot me an email if I miss it or something like that, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Thanks so much for the guys that are moderators in there that are helping me. It is really appreciated. I probably don't tell you guys that enough, but thank you very much. And yeah, welcome to the show. So for the new people that are here, my name's Chris. I'm a HVACR service technician, run a small business with my father here in Southern California. And I work on restaurants. So, you know, I happen to film the videos, started out for my own service technicians, and then, you know, just kind of became a thing. That was all the way back in November of 2017. And here we are now in, let's see, July 1st of 2024. It's been a interesting ride for sure. So the channel has evolved, has changed, but I mean, for the most part, it's still the same content. You know, it's kind of funny. Recently, I'd say probably about 6 months ago, I went back and watched the very first video on my YouTube channel. That really was the very first video. It was never meant to be for people. And it was me proceeding to explain to my service technicians, you know, how I go about troubleshooting a system that had a blown fuse. Spent a bunch of time just digging into it, trying to find the reason, because fuses don't go bad. And if you know, by themselves, that's the way that I always treat them. Now I realize there's going to be anomalies, there's going to be weird situations, but if you assume that a fuse doesn't go bad on its own, you're going to do your due diligence to try to find a reason why. And that's what I did in that video. So what was interesting is going back and reflecting on that video. A lot of my characteristics and my troubleshooting traits and everything are all the same. Like I really would troubleshoot that more than likely the exact same today, right? It's definitely crazy. So, like I said, a couple things I want to cover. So let's see what the chat has to say. So Joe says, what's my process for choosing what refrigerant to replace R22 when having to do so? I prefer to use R22. I mean, I have tried a few. I've tried 427A, I think. I did not have very good success with that. And I've tried 407C. So 407C is probably my choice for comfort cooling, as long as we do oil changes. Other than that, I still sell R22 to this day. Probably the most common refrigerant that I sell is R22. I mean, we're using the heck out of it right now. I use more R22 still to this day than I do 410A for sure. So, but yeah, probably 407C. Here's the thing. If you're going to convert a refrigerant to something else, you need to understand there's going to be ramifications. It's not going to be perfect, and there's going to be issues. If you have a mineral oil system and you're converting it to an R22 replacement that takes polyester oil, you got to change all the O-rings in the system. You're going to have issues because going from mineral to polyester, you're going to have issues with the O-ring shrinking, leaks, all different stuff like that. So it's just a nightmare. So I prefer to continue to use R22 until the customer makes the decisions to go ahead and convert the system to a new refrigerant, but the proper way, changing equipment, changing line sizes, that kind of stuff. So if I was to choose an alternative, every case would be different, but I can tell you this, I'm not going to trust what a supply house says. Okay. I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to dig into it, really do the details, find out from the compressor manufacturers, the equipment manufacturers, what do they recommend, you know, that kind of stuff. So just got to do your research there. But yeah, I still use 22 to this day. So let's see. Have I ever had any issues with my SC480? I haven't had an SC480. I think I have one sitting in, I don't even know if I've ever had the SC480. I've had the 440. I use the, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, 480. No issues with my 480. That thing works fine. I thought you were talking about the 680 because I think you were asking about the 680. I believe someone was asking about the 680 earlier, which is the large clamp meter from Fieldpiece, which is just way too big for me. It has the swivel head on the top. That's the only thing that I like about that 680. Other than that, it's just too big. It does have dual temperature displays if you want to do dual temperatures on it, but really I don't use my meter for temperatures anymore. So I'll use my job link clamps or job link psychrometer probes or something. But no, 480, I mean, not really. I don't think I've really had issues other than meter leads. Like my meter leads need to be replaced. So right now, so I need to get some new ones. Friendly neighborhood maintenance guy says, don't use MO99. Yeah, no, the MO99 is a problem. Big capacity loss with it. And there's a lot of misinformation. You want to know the biggest issue with MO99 is everybody trusts the marketing materials for their deceptive marketing, where it says you don't need to do oil changes and you can just swap the refrigerant and call it a day. That is not true. If you look at the details of any of the service guidelines or retrofit guidelines for any of these, even the MO99, somewhere in the fine print, it's going to say works best with polyester oil. Or if there's high pressure drops or situations like that, you're typically going to have to do more stuff, which in essence means it doesn't work with mineral oil that well. Okay. Now I realize some of you have used it and you've had success, but just trust me, it's not going to work unless you do a full oil change and you design the system for it. Been through this a lot. So let's see what else we got going on in the chat. R438A is the hoe of refrigerants. That's funny. Let's see. Oh, because that is MO99. Got you. Yeah, let's see what we goes. You need POE with MO99. That is true. Yeah. Even converting it to POE, still junk. Yep, 100%. Every manufacturer says the refrigerant works perfectly. 100%. 100%. They, it's all reading the marketing materials. If there's fine print, that fine print is gospel. So trust the fine print. The fine print's usually the one that says works best with polyester oil. Doesn't work in high pressure drop situations, like all these things. So trust the fine print, because the fine print's usually the gospel for sure. So let's see. Cool. So got a couple things. Had a few videos that I released over the last 3 weeks, and I'm going to talk about a few things from those videos. I had a walk-in video where I said the walk-in won't get cold. It was from June 20th. And let's see that video. Let me see the thumbnail and it'll refresh my memory on that one, because I put out videos and I honestly forget what my videos are about. Like I do them and then they go in one ear and out the other and I forget. The walk-in won't get cold. That's the one. Yeah, there's some good stuff on that one. So that video in particular was had something else to go to that day. I was just swinging by there real quick to look at the walk-in because it just came in and I happened to be in the area. So I swung out there and it turned out to be a failed liquid line solenoid valve. Oh my gosh, let's go ahead and address this one really quick. So let me see. I can't tell you how many comments I got about this. I mounted the solenoid valve on its side and everybody freaked out because they thought that a solenoid valve always needed to be in the vertical position up and down all the time. If you read the manufacturer's installation instructions, each valve, depending on the build, will allow you to do different things. That particular valve, it was an E5 valve, a Sporlan liquid line solenoid valve, an E5, I believe. I think it was an E5. And I'm almost positive it was. But that particular valve, you're allowed to mount it sideways. You just realistically don't want to mount it upside down if you can avoid that, okay? But you can go vertical, you can go horizontal, you can go on its side, and it does fine. So it's just a matter of reading the installation instructions, and you'll be fine. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat right now. I'm sorry, on my thing. So this particular person, Joe Conway, wants to know how I came up with my logo for my videos. Honestly, okay, so here's the thing. With this channel and everything, it's all an afterthought. I never planned on any of this. My cousin is a graphic designer, and she helped me come up with the initial logo, which is not the one that I use, but it gave me the inspiration for the one. She gave me the color scheme and the color palette, and then from there, I had the gentleman that does my t-shirts for me. He tweaked the logo, made it look a little bit better, and the history's there. Like, I really didn't put too much effort into it. Just kind of came up with an idea. The snowflake was the idea, and that was pretty much it. So not really a great story with that one. Can the dryer... Okay, so this person's asking me if you have an iced up suction line dryer. Oh, no. Can a plugged up dryer cause a suction line to ice up? It just depends. Is it a liquid line dryer? Then yeah, sure. It can cause the suction line. I mean, suction line. No, wait. I'm sorry. I read that question wrong. Can a filter dryer cause the suction line to ice up? I mean, I don't really think that's going to be your problem. First and foremost, people see ice and they think it's the end of the world. It depends on what you're working on. Is it an air conditioner? Is it a freezer? Is it a refrigerator? Different things, right? If you see some ice on a suction line, that could just simply mean that the refrigerant line is below the temperature of freezing and it causes condensation and ice to form. If you have a liquid line filter dryer, Will it cause the suction line to ice up? I mean, in theory, a liquid line filter dryer that was plugging up could cause the liquid line to kind of frost a little bit because you've got liquid refrigerant, the dryer's metering it, changing the state in the dryer, which it's not supposed to do. If you have a suction line filter dryer that's plugged up, is that going to cause the suction line to ice up? Not really. I mean, I don't really think that's going to be a problem with the suction line. So again, I need more context with that question to understand really your problem. But I wouldn't really be digging into your dryer as much if you have iced up system or if you have a dirty evaporator coil. If you're working on a residential system and you're having a freeze up problem, start with your airflow. Airflow can be just simply an iced up or a dirty coil, you know, not allowing airflow, which is just causing problems. But airflow before charge always. Okay. Let's see. Answered this one. Oh, in the video, when I changed the liquid line solenoid valve, got quite a few people asking me this too. How come I didn't put a heat blocking compound on the liquid line solenoid valve? How come I didn't wrap the liquid line solenoid valve with a wet towel or the TXV as I was brazing in the liquid line solenoid valve? Because I was being lazy and taking shortcuts. Plain and simple. I was just taking shortcuts. Remember though, you can get away with quite a bit, but if you take shortcuts like that, you have to be willing to suffer the consequences. Okay. So I took a shortcut. I was in a hurry. I probably shouldn't have, but it is what it is. Everything worked out fine. So let's go ahead and have a look at the chat right now and see what I'm missing. Suction line filter will cause high superheat. That is correct. That is one thing it can cause for sure. So reading through the chat right now. Where do I live? I live in Southern California, specifically the Inland Empire, Riverside, California area. Let's see what we got going on in the chat right now. What else do we got going on here? Okay, cool. I already covered. Oh, wait, here we go. There's one right there. Heatcraft reports that some of their new equipment gets higher BTU output with 448A versus 404A. Magic. Okay, so the reason why you see that is because 448A is a high glide refrigerant, okay? And what's actually happening is you actually get a higher BTU capacity from the evaporator coil, but in high temperatures, you get a lower delivered BTU capacity from the condensing unit when you're using a high glide refrigerant like 448A. So it's not so much that they get more BTU output. The evaporator will get a higher BTU output, but oftentimes the condenser at high temperatures can get a little bit of a lower BTU output. It's not magic. It's actually just physics and science. So if you get on and off while brazing, then less of the issue with the heat block. I mean, you know, everybody kind of has their opinions on that. And I try to protect my components as much as possible when I'm brazing, but sometimes I'm just lazy and I don't. So, so I had a video on the 23rd of June. The walk-in freezer was working fine yesterday and had a few questions in there, but one of the questions was, did I do that service call alone? Yes. Yeah, I did. A good majority of the time. I haven't had anybody working with me in a while. Don't really have an apprentice at the moment. My previous apprentice is now a service tech for like 2 years. So yeah, I usually don't have people with me unless we're doing a really big job. But yeah, I did that job by myself. So this gentleman says he's trying to find a good apprenticeship program in his area. Any ideas where to start? Well, it really depends. Okay. If you need to kind of see what's best for you and your family, right? If you have a family and you need to make decisions based on that, union can be a great thing and union can be a bad thing. Non-union can be great and non-union can be bad. Okay. So it really depends on what you put into it and the type of programs that they have. If the union is strong in your area and the benefits make sense and the pay makes sense, you can go that direction, but you can also get just as valuable of a career non-union. So it really depends on the company that you find and how much effort you put into it. I'm not going to say the union is bad. I'm not going to say non-union is bad. I mean, they can both be good and bad at different times. So it really depends on what's best for you and your family. As far as a true apprenticeship program, the odds of you finding a better apprenticeship program with the union are pretty high because most service companies don't offer true apprenticeships that are non-union. So that is something to think about too. Now, I offer something similar where, you know, I gave my apprentice about a year of riding with me every single day and me not really making too much money. I invested in him. So, you know, but that wasn't a true like 3-year apprenticeship with different stages and stuff, you know. So it really depends on what's best for you and your family is what I'm going to suggest. Okay. Already covered that one. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Angel wants to know, what kind of hoses, water hoses, do I use when I'm defrosting evaporator coils? Also, am I using a sink adapter for my water hoses? Okay, so I use solid rubber hoses, usually by the tire manufacturers, from Continental or from Goodyear, depends on whatever the hardware store has, right? Get them from Home Depot or Lowe's. I still use traditional water hoses. I carry two 50-foot water hoses in my van, and they do me really well. Okay. They last usually 2 to 3 years because every time I use my water hoses, I drain them, I dry them, and I clean them with a wet towel. Then I roll them up and put them away empty. They are not full of water. There's nothing worse to me. I got issues, right? But there's nothing worse to me than to pick up your hoses when they're all greasy and dirty, put them on your shoulder, and then you got big dirt and grease marks on your shoulder. I prefer to have my hoses cleaned out, dried, and drained every single time. As far as am I using fittings for the sinks, the mop sinks and stuff? No, because the restaurants that I work in, they all have like traditional mop sinks with hose spigots in them. Okay. If you try to go to a 3-compartment sink and use a hose adapter on that sink and hook up your water hose to it, if the health department gets wind of that, or if happens to walk in, a restaurant's going to get in a lot of trouble. If you're going to be hooking up water hoses, I highly encourage you to hook them up to true water hose spigots or mop sinks and not traditional 3-compartment sinks. They should have backflow arresters on them, so that way there's no potential of water going back into the water system, which in reality, I mean, that's almost not going to happen ever. But, you know, health departments and different things have reasons for their fears and their rules, right? But yeah, I use water hoses, just traditional water hoses. I like to use a wand that has a shower setting that you can regulate it. I really like those. I don't like the pocket hoses, the ones that collapse down into tiny little buckets and stuff. Personally, nothing against anybody that uses them, but I've seen them explode in restaurants when people are dragging them around corners and different things. They'll catch a corner and rip them. And when you're working in a restaurant, for instance, I'm in a walk-in freezer. I've got the door shut. I'm de-icing a walk-in, and then all of a sudden my hose pressure goes away, and I go out there and I find that my water hose is spraying all over the kitchen, getting computers wet and all kinds of different stuff. I prefer not to use that. The odds of a traditional rubber water hose going bad just out of nowhere are pretty slim. Usually you can see the signs because I roll them up every time. I can start to see when there's damage or wear. But if you're using like a pocket hose, those are really difficult to actually clean. They're usually like a cloth or a fabric material. Just not a fan of those. But you do you if that's what you use. I'm not judging anybody. It's just not my style. So, all right, let's go ahead and cross that one off the list. Oh, I already answered that one right there. Cool. And let's have a look at the chat and see. Wow, Brian Sanders carries about 400 foot of hose on the van. That's a lot of water hose, man. But you probably do some industrial stuff or warehouse stuff where you don't have water hoses, you know. 250-foot hoses typically takes care of what I need for the restaurants that I'm working on. Be careful with hot water. 100%, Keith Peterson. 100%. Commercial water heaters are no joke. So I like to use hot water, but you also need to be careful. And also when you're using hot water, like sometimes when I have really greasy microchannel coils, I will bring hot water onto the roof, but you can actually drain the water heaters. And I said that recently in a video, and someone's like, actually, correction, commercial water heaters, da 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 da. They started spouting off a bunch of stuff. Trust me, if you're using a water hose up on a roof, you are using a lot of hose to clean like a 15-ton condenser, 18-ton Lennox units and stuff. You're going to be using a lot of water. And even if they have redundant water storage tanks, I have depleted their water capacity very quickly, just because you're up on the roof for typically 3 to 4 hours cleaning condensers. And if it's just hot water and you're just letting it go the entire time, let's just say an hour straight of water from, you know, hot water, you're going to deplete that water tank pretty quick to the point that their water temperature is going to drop. And depending on the restaurants or the locations you're working at, they could have monitoring systems that could dispatch service calls. So just be cautious about using their hot water. Walk-ins and stuff like that, you're usually not using too much. But when you're doing rooftop equipment, I tend to like only use it when I really need to, and then I'll go back down and change it to cold water. So let's see. Oh, Angel Morales, I just covered the water hoses right now. I use the black water hoses, the rubber ones from like Home Depot or Lowe's, from the tire manufacturers, either Continental or Goodyear. I don't really care for the pocket hoses, and I don't hook up to sinks or anything. I do a traditional mop sink with a hose spigot in it. That's what I'll hook up to. You typically don't want to hook up to the 3-compartment sinks. And J.R. Smith makes a good point too. Most hoses are not rated for hot water. This can break down a hose, rubber, or otherwise. That is very true. So you need to be very cautious. Oftentimes, people can have the high temperature setting on the water heaters or the boiler set rather high too. And, that can be a problem. So be very, very cautious about that stuff. Just because there's regulations that says water temperatures can't be set over this doesn't mean that someone before you didn't crank that temperature up to a stupid level. So be very cautious about that. Yes, they can burst 100%. And that's why when I do mine, I will take the risk and use hot water sometimes. But when I clean them, I'm always inspecting my hoses. You can usually feel the breakdown inside of them. You can usually tell. So, all right. So I had a video that was released on Sunday where I had a dining AC not working and it had a high pressure safety in it. Got a couple questions from that. So I think it's Mohammed had asked, could it have been a compressor that was overamping that caused the high temperature limit for the condenser fan motor? Not really, okay? Because if you had an overamping compressor, that would be an underperforming compressor more than likely. The compressor would likely go off on thermal overload, and then you would not have a high pressure situation in most cases. In my situation, like I mentioned in the video, I had a high pressure safety cutout, right? So it's either a faulty high pressure control, an overcharged condenser, a dirty condenser, a non-operating condenser fan motor, something like that, a bad condenser fan motor relay, right? It's one of those situations. So I changed the capacitor on the motor. I tested the relay, seemed to be working okay. I checked the refrigerant charge, did not seem to be overcharged. I checked the condenser, it was clean. So that basically just leaves a faulty motor, which it wasn't overamping. So I didn't change it as of yet. There could be a faulty pressure control. I did not test for the faulty pressure control. We'll see. I mean, if we have any more issues, then we'll take care of it. But at this time, didn't really find an issue other than a faulty run capacitor. Let's see what else we got going on in here. I'm crossing things off as we go through. Do I ever do heat related stuff? Someone asked. Not really. I'm in Southern California. We're in a warm climate. We really don't know what cold is here in Southern California. So it's very rare that I'm working on heating systems. I do occasionally, but I don't really have many videos. Plus, I'm not an expert in heating systems. I don't even own a combustion analyzer. So I'll leave those videos to the other guys that do the cold weather stuff, and they can cover that stuff. I'll handle the refrigeration and the air conditioning and the ice machines and the exhaust fans all day long. So already covered that one. Cool. What about using an insulation tester on the condenser fan motor for that AC that had the high pressure safety cutout? I really don't see the need for an insulation tester because we did not have a tripped circuit breaker. We did not have an issue where we had a main circuit breaker tripping or anything like that. That's when I would bust out the insulation tester, because the insulation tester is going to test the quality of the insulation that's on top of the electrical windings. It's going to test for insulation breakdown and potential shorts to ground a lot better than you could do with a 9-volt battery that's in your voltmeter. Okay. So in that situation, because we didn't have any kind of a short, no breakers tripping, no fuses blowing, I did not see the need to use an insulation tester. Right. So let's get through here. Why was I not worried about the 33-degree saturation temperature on the low side of the system in that video? That's a great question. So I deal with a lot of package units here in Southern California, and pretty much 99.9% of them have undersized ductwork. So majority of the time, I'm used to seeing low saturation temperatures on the low side. I'm not saying that I'm going to ignore a low saturation temperature, but I look at the vitals. If I see a low saturation temperature and a low condensing temperature, high superheat, low subcooling, then I might start to dig into an issue where maybe we're going to have an undercharge or low airflow or something like that. But when I look at my vitals and I see normal to high subcooling, good refrigerant pressures, you know, normal condensing temperature, but just a low saturation temperature, but maybe normal airflow, then I'm just going to assume, or even just slightly low airflow, I'm going to assume that it's a ductwork problem. And oftentimes customers don't want to spend the money to correct the ductwork problems because the AC has worked fine for 20 years. Why fix it now? You know, kind of a thing. But some other things to consider too is, you know, airflow is a big thing. You just can't really ignore it. But the other thing to consider is low load. If you have a low load in the building, like I think in that video, I was there early in the morning. It was kind of cool in the building. I went up onto the roof. I found the high pressure code. You know, you're going to have low saturation temperatures when you're running your AC at 65, 68 degree indoor temperature, right? That's just going to be a low load. So that's going to cause low superheat oftentimes, and that's going to cause low saturation, low delivered capacity is what you're going to see. So I always look at all the vitals, and I may not vocalize it 100%, but I'm like looking at everything in my head. You got to remember that my main priority is to fix the equipment. So there's a lot of things spouting off in my head that maybe I'm not vocalizing. So those are all things to consider when I'm making these videos. So why? Oh, this is a question I get so often, and this is an interesting one. Someone pointed out the fact that I really should call my local power utility company because I had 200 volts on a 208 volt three-phase system. 200 volts is normal for Southern California. Heck, 192 is pretty normal. 186 is when that's the lowest threshold that you can have on older 6 to 8 SEER equipment was 186 volts. When you get into the computer boards and, you know, ECMs and things like that, that really low voltage starts to cause some problems. So on modern equipment, the lowest I typically see, you want to see the voltage is about 192, 196, somewhere in there. That's still low, but it's pretty common to see that. We have such a high energy demand here in Southern California. We have a highly dense population. And, you know, what you tend to see is on really hot days, you have low voltage. And when there's high demand, you'll have low voltage. Getting the utility involved, they're not going to come out for 200 volts. They're just not even going to show up. So let's see what else we got going on in here. Oh, this is a good question too. So in that video, this was the one that had the high pressure safeties, right? The dining AC is not working. This was released this Sunday. How did I not trigger the smoke detectors when I shut off power to the unit? That is a great question. So if you work in restaurants, you probably know this, or sometimes hospitals or shopping malls, that you can have smoke detectors or duct detectors in the system. And depending on how they are wired, they can let the customer know when there's a trouble condition. Oftentimes, the alarm companies will monitor their system with two wires. They have, let's just call it a red and a black wire, right? And that's coming through the system. And if that wire shorts to itself, it will trigger typically a fire alarm. But how does the fire alarm company know if a mouse comes up and eats one of those two wires, right? Because you're hoping you never see a short unless there's a problem, right? A direct short. So how do they know that the wire is still intact, that the circuit is still intact? Well, because oftentimes they will put a very low, like a 10K ohm resistor across there, or 20K ohm resistor right across the wires, right? And that will let them see the resistor across those two wires, but it doesn't do a direct short to where it triggers the fire alarm. So depending on how you wire those systems, they use it as a proving circuit to prove that the circuit's intact. So that way, if it is too short or trigger, if there's a fire condition, they will be properly notified. Well, there's another way, using a set of contacts, that you can take that circuit with the resistor across it, the proving circuit, and you could wire it into a trouble contact on the duct detector. So if the duct detector ever loses power, it goes into a trouble and the resistor disappears from the circuit. So the fire alarm company will know that someone shut off one of the ACs potentially. So how is it that that didn't happen in that video? Because the fire alarm's not wired into that particular duct detector. The customer never had the fire alarm company come up and make the field connections. There's actually duct detectors down in the ductwork in the building. So there's redundant smoke detectors. They have duct detectors down in the building that the fire alarm company is monitoring. And then the ones on the roof are just there for the package units themselves. And there's no trouble condition monitoring at the unit itself. That's pretty common. So let's see. Jonathan Hughes says he sees 204 volts or a little less on a 208 volt system. What's going to happen when they put in all these EV charging stations on an already strained grid? We already have them everywhere here. So it's definitely a struggle for the power company for sure. So San Onofre, yeah, they shut down San Onofre, the nuclear power plant for sure. And El Diablo Canyon up north in Northern California, I believe was our only operating nuclear power plant here in California, and they extended the operation of that one, but that one was supposed to be shut down like 4 years ago, but they realized we were having issues with the grid, and so they did like an emergency proclamation not to shut it down. My personal opinion is modern nuclear power systems with competent people operating them are the solution to a lot of our answers or to a lot of our questions, but obviously there's got to be a lot of safeties in place and different things. You know, a lot of the power grids, we're using outdated nuclear power plants from the 60s and 70s, and those needed to be updated severely to modern equipment systems for sure. So see what else we got going on in the chat right now. Yeah, Jason says that it's very rare that he runs into 208 volt systems. He's so used to 480 volt. Yeah, I only have a handful of 480 volt systems anymore. It's pretty common if you're in a shopping mall that there's going to be 480 volt equipment. Actually, I'm thinking right now, I don't think I have any 480 volt equipment anymore because I lost one of my customers that was on a lot of shopping malls and they had a lot of 480 volt equipment. But yeah, at this time right now, I don't think I have any 480. I don't think so. There might be one location. I can't remember, but yeah, it's not very common. So reading through the chat right now, seeing what else is going on here. Do I think the added efficiency of microchannel coils outweighs the problems they typically have? No, I don't. The microchannel coils, they're just not meant for restaurants. And see, I do restaurant work. It's just ridiculous, the restaurant stuff. The microchannels get too greasy. You got to clean them with improper cleaners, or people do that and don't properly rinse them. And it just creates problems, which leads to leaks and deterioration. And it's just a problem. So reading through here right now, what else do we got going? Will a TXV prevent from excessive liquid coming back to the compressor? Well, a properly operating and properly sized TXV should prevent liquid from coming back to the compressor, but it's not so much prevent. If you have a properly sized TXV that is properly operating, your evaporator is what's really going to prevent the liquid from coming back, because you should only be feeding enough of a saturated liquid vapor mixture through the TXV into the evaporator, and then the air and the heat transfer coming across the evaporator should finalize the conversion or the change of state of refrigerant from a saturated liquid vapor mixture coming out of the TXV to a vapor mixture going back to the compressor. So in all reality, your evaporator is the real thing that is going to do the phase change. It's going to complete the phase change. The TXV kind of starts the phase change because you have high temperature, high pressure, liquid refrigerant, right? Or yeah, kind of, right? High temperature. I say medium temperature, high pressure liquid refrigerant coming into a TXV. And then it comes out of a TXV and it's a saturated state. It's a liquid vapor mixture. It's little liquid droplets being vaporized, right? And then the heat transfer in the evaporator is what finishes that and converts it completely into a vapor. So do I work on industrial? No, I do not. Simon Harvey says, you saw a thing that said the amount of computing needed that it will use. Oh, yeah, exactly. With power, 100%. Yeah. Let's see. So Jonathan Pettit says, you are a business owner that just got into the commercial world. Could I do a video on how to change belts and set pulleys and align them, please? You can't find anything. I will keep that in mind. I don't really do like requests per se because I don't plan my videos. But I'll keep that in mind for a future service call when I'm working on some power transmission and I can just kind of show. But I do, if you look up most of my exhaust fan videos, there's a few of them where I'll be showing, you know, how I'm aligning different things. But keep in mind that there's a few different methods for aligning equipment, and it really depends on the type of equipment you're working on. Jason Johnson, who's in the chat, Will Speed, who's in the chat, they tend to work on the heavier industrial stuff that actually needs proper alignment equipment, sometimes using alignment tools and different things to get perfect laser alignment. I'm going to use some just like cheap lasers to kind of get me in the ballpark because the equipment I'm working on isn't as critical when it comes to alignment, so those are things to think about. Okay, I already answered that one. See what else we got going on in here. So Jonathan Pettit says, just curious, you did a 15-ton RTU change out, but you don't know how to change and tighten the belts. Yeah, it just depends on what type of equipment it's in. Shoot me an email, Jonathan, with the type of equipment you're working on, and maybe I can give you some pointers and different things. Let's see what else. How do I feel about restaurants closing in Florida? Chili's restaurants closing a bunch down in Florida. I don't do any work in Florida, so it doesn't really affect me. What you're seeing is with the economy right now, restaurant chains across the country are closing down locations because with inflation and the price of everything going up, it's a hard thing for some people to stomach. And so restaurants aren't doing as good. So oftentimes these big chain restaurants that have, restaurants across the country, they're getting rid of the dead weight. They're getting rid of the restaurants that were costing them money. I've seen restaurants close in my area too. Not so much because we still are doing kind of okay out here, but yeah, it's definitely crazy. So, all right, so let's see what else we got going on in the chat right now. Shaft alignments on pumps is a real big deal. Yeah. And then think about, definitely shaft alignment on those. I don't deal with any pumps like that, but yeah, you'll get vibrations. You have to have vibration analysis equipment. This is all stuff that I don't do, so I'm not going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about with that kind of stuff. So, yeah, these big chain restaurants, food is hard to stomach right now. I see what you did there, Freon Leon. So, yeah, I don't eat at a lot of chain restaurants myself either. So, and it's not so much that I feel like I'm better than anything or anything like that. It's just as you get older, I don't eat as much of the fast food type food anymore. I have, doctors telling me that I need to eat better and do this and not fried foods, no high sodium, no high sugar, all this different stuff. So, I have to kind of be careful what I eat these days. Business owner getting into your second summer and starting to try and hire employees. Phew, man, Wesley, I need employees right now too. And we've been at business for many, many years. I'm struggling right now. I have a guy off on sick leave. It's basically, yeah, we're slammed right now because I'm a small company and I already needed to hire one person. And then now I just had someone go on sick leave and it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm dying right now. So I basically am on call. It's easier to say that I'm not on call 1 weekend a month. That's pretty much it right now. I'm on call all the time. So yeah, this last weekend was exhausting. And then we got like family stuff going on. It's crazy. Steve, great question. So why are most restaurants wanting to use VFD motors just to exhaust? Well, actually, Steve, it's not so much the restaurants wanting to do that. Manufacturers are actually pushing for VFD equipment. But I mean, the restaurants, in essence, they're liking it too, because in the restaurant's eyes, if they don't have belts on their exhaust fans, it's less maintenance to them. They think like, we don't know how to do maintenance on the exhaust fans. There's no belts. Well, there's still motor vents on those direct drive fans. I personally am not a fan of direct drive exhaust fans, right? Pun intended. But the reason why, it's not because I know that they're more efficient. Now, we can get into a long discussion on they're more efficient until you have to change the motor every 2 years. And then you realize that energy efficiency, that savings is lost because you're changing these motors out or you're changing the VFDs out. But that can be prevented too if the customer spent more money. In my opinion, the manufacturers of the equipment are not doing a good job in educating the customers. The manufacturers sell a piece of equipment, a direct drive exhaust fan with a VFD running it and, whatever. And the customer thinks savings because the manufacturer's marketing department gets involved in the sale. And they say, yeah, this is going to save you money. This is energy efficient. You're going to get rebates, all this different stuff, right? Well, the customer doesn't realize that there's still maintenance that needs to be done, or the manufacturer doesn't do a good job of telling the customer that if you have a VFD controlling an exhaust fan, you need to have surge protectors and power conditioning, making sure that you have proper power coming into this building. Low voltage dips and high voltage spikes kill electronics. They kill VFDs and cause lots of headaches to these customers. So the customers, they're like, what the heck, you know? So it's all kind of coming around right now where these customers are realizing it's kind of frustrating. But then you get regulations involved, right? I had a customer over the weekend that has a walk-in freezer that lost 2 evaporator fan motors. These evaporator fan motors are from Russell. They're 2-speed ECM motors. Those motors cost the customer about $1,000 each for a 32-watt evaporator fan motor for a walk-in freezer. Okay, that evaporator coil probably cost the customer $6,000. They just spent $2,000 just in motors, not including my labor over the weekend for me to change 2 of those motors. It's getting asinine how much these parts are costing. And then on those Russell evaporators, there's no real solid good replacement that's easy. You can't use an aftermarket because the way that they design the motors, it just doesn't work. You have to go back with the OEM unless you're going to be getting in there and doing all kinds of crazy, silly stuff with bushings and washers and all kinds of crap. It's just not going to work anymore. So, you know, it's just, I stopped being frustrated about it. And it just, the customers buying this equipment, they're buying all this crap. And it's like, well, here you go. This is what it's going to cost, you know? All right, let's see. What's the best RTU unit? The best brand is the one that's installed properly. And I know that's cliche, but for real, okay? If you install it properly, you commission it properly, most equipment, I'd say 95% of it is going to last a long time. But I'd say 99.9% of the equipment that's installed these days is not installed correctly. Therefore, you're going to have problems, okay? Every manufacturer has issues, but you know, it's all about the installation and how they're installed and, you know, the power coming into them. Is it proper? Just that kind of stuff. That's what's going to make it last. Really, then what's the best brand? I mean, that's not really a fair question. What brand do I like to work on? Well, I like to work on Lennox and Carrier, and it's not so much that I think they're better than everybody. I'm just very comfortable and familiar with those brands. So therefore, you know, I can diagnose and troubleshoot a lot of the problems with those because I'm so familiar with them. You put me on a Train package unit, you put me on a York package unit, I'm going to be a little confused. It's going to take me a minute to figure some things out. It's not so much that one is better than the other. It's just that I'm not very comfortable with it. So government mandates the PSC motor must go and ECMs are the norm. Yep, that's pretty much the same. So let's see. Wesley Tibbs bought a fan blade for a 15-ton Train unit 327. I just installed a VFD and an ECM condenser fan motor in a Train package unit. It cost the customer over $10,000 because of how much the parts cost and then labor and overtime and all that crap. But yeah, that was insane. It's insane. It's asinine to think that 18-ton package unit needs a $10,000 repair to change a VFD and a condenser fan motor and some other stuff too. But yeah, it's crazy. Let's see. I stated a while back that you'd need an EV with a lot of range. The new Silverado EV has a 204 kilowatt hour battery on board, about double the model of the Cybertruck, and the Rivian has about 130 kilowatts. Yeah, 100%. So someone asked me a long time ago, would I ever buy an electric vehicle for a work vehicle? And I said that the only way, and I'm not even saying that this is the one thing that would make me buy it, but the only way that I would even consider it is if I could get 400 to 500 mile range on a single battery charge on a fully loaded van. So my van probably has 10,000 pounds of crap in it, right? It's got a crap ton of weight in my van. So if I had my fully loaded van and I could get 400 to 500, probably 500 miles range on it on a single battery charge, that would be something that I would possibly start to consider. But still, it doesn't make sense for me because of the costs and everything. I live in Southern California where we have electric vehicle chargers everywhere, but I can't wait. I can't charge every 2 hours. I can't go and sit at a charger for 2.5, 3 hours to get a third of a battery charge. So the only reason that I say that I need 400 to 500 mile range is because I don't think I would exceed that in a day. So that means that I could make it home to get a full charge overnight. But even still, using a home charger at my house, we only have 240-volt single phase at my home. We don't have the option of 3-phase. We don't have the option of 480 or even higher. If you go to a Tesla supercharging station, they're probably bringing in higher than 480 volts, I would imagine, into that charging station. So that's why they can do a supercharge, right? On a standard 240-volt single phase service like my house has, it would take forever to charge something like that. And it's just not practical at this point. Once they figure it out, maybe, I don't know. It's just not there yet. Yeah, J.R. Smith, are those ranges loaded or empty? The one thing I will say with the Chevy truck, there was a gentleman, Dan from What's Inside, and I can't think of the other guy's name from Jerry Rig Everything. I can't think of his name, but they did a test with the Silverado EV, and it exceeded what the manufacturer said, and they ran it to completely dead, and it exceeded what they said. But it was just two gentlemen in the truck. It wasn't like a fully loaded, weighed down truck. But still, I will say that that was pretty impressive that they rated it as X number of miles, and it exceeded what they did. So let's see what else. And then you get an after hours, Carl. Exactly. So let me tell you guys about this one. I'm not going to give you guys. Okay, so Mr. You said, have I had any problems yet with my home AC unit? No. I've been wanting to do like a video or something, but I've just been super busy and haven't had time. So we are in the bulk of it. We're above design conditions. My design temperature for outdoor ambient, what we designed my system for, is 95 degrees dry bulb outside. Okay. And we have been well above 95-degree dry bulb. I've been able to maintain 74, 75 in my house. No problem. Now, I will say that right now my house is at 74 degrees. If I go bump my thermostat down to 72, it will not drop to 72 for probably 3 or 4 hours. Okay. Because we are at our design limitations, but we designed my system to maintain 75 degrees. Okay. If I want to get a head start, if I drop my system to like 72, 71 degrees overnight, then yes, we will be able to maintain probably 73 degrees throughout the day. But we are going to have some, as the temperatures around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, I'm going to see the indoor temperatures kind of rise a degree or two, but I have no problem maintaining 75 degrees. No problem. Now, you start cooking in my house, you do a bunch of cooking on a really hot day. Yeah, we see the thermostat kind of come up to about 76 degrees inside the house. And then it'll struggle to come down. But again, this is how I design the system to be more energy efficient. Right now, when we're above design, it pretty much runs all the time, which is how we designed it. It's how it's supposed to be. I could have designed it for a lower temperature, put in a 2.5 ton or something like that, but I didn't want to. I wanted to push the envelope. It's doing everything that I designed it. Well, that we designed it to do. My buddy Adam Muffitch is the person that did the load on my house, the calculations and everything, and helped me to decide on the system and everything. And it is working absolutely the way that I designed it to work. So, see what we got in here. In 100, yours doesn't go above 71. Yeah, 100. But you guys got to remember something too. 74 degrees is, again, what I designed it for. If I designed it for 68, it would maintain 68. But also, the relative humidity outside is really, really low here. Okay. So 74 degrees is actually pretty darn comfortable in my house. 73 degrees is really comfortable. I start to get cold if I have it at 73 degrees and I'm sitting on the couch. It starts getting chilly everywhere. What brand systems on my house? Brandon, if you go to my channel, I have a full series where I did the design and install of the system in my house, but I put in a 2-ton Carrier Infinity system and I went from a 4-ton system. So I downsized from a 4-ton to a 2-ton on my house. Do I still want to do the fresh air intake for it? Yeah, someday, but it's not a priority right now. But yeah, that is still part of my design for sure. So, Zach, there you go, from Jerry Rig Everything. That's right, 100%. Cool. Yeah, so that's fun. Now, I'm not going to give you guys all the details, but I'm going to tell you guys of a nightmare that I had yesterday. Okay. So I had a pretty busy weekend doing service calls, but yesterday, probably about 10 a.m., I got an emergency service call for a walk-in freezer not working. And I went out there and I found that we did not have proper 3-phase power at the disconnect switch outside. Okay. The walk-in freezer condenser and walk-in cooler evaporator are outside, and we did not have proper 3-phase power. And I went to the breaker panel inside, pulled the breaker apart, and I had proper 3-phase panel at the breaker. The electrical leaves the breaker, goes underground, probably about 50 feet, then comes up outside into the disconnect switch. Okay. And we did not have proper power, but we had it at the breaker panel. So I'm going to leave you guys on a cliffhanger there. You're going to have to wait for the video. There's going to be more to the video, but an electrician was involved. We had some epic failures because I stayed to try to help him fix the problem. And we had some seriously epic failures. And I had to do something to get the equipment running. And it's fine. Everything is legit and it works. It's not ideal. It's only a temporary solution. But we only had a few options to get this equipment running. The walk-in freezer was completely down and basically lost 2 phases. But there was some weird stuff going on. And it makes sense once we figured out what happened. But still, it's kind of scary what happened there. So you guys are going to have to wait for the video. It's going to definitely be an interesting one. So, and then electricians, I did a temporary fix and got it going. The electricians still have to do some stuff and fix it permanently. So definitely interesting. Have I ever been called for a service call in the middle of the stream? Oh yeah, definitely. I've ended streams because I got to go do service calls and stuff. Yeah, I've had it happen quite often. So definitely have. All right, well, I think it's time that we wrap this up. I'm gonna cut it a little bit short. I'm going to go take a nap because I'm tired. My family's all gone. My oldest daughter has a job and she works until like 11 o'clock tonight. My youngest daughter's out of friends. I got to go pick her up at 8 p.m. my time. It's about 6 here. My wife is out of town due to a family emergency, helping some family. Keith Peterson, thank you very much for that super chat, man. That is really awesome. Keith Peterson says, big picture makes you absolutely a better person, and the HVACR gear is the lady's choice. Thank you, Keith. You're always plugging my merch. If you guys are interested in any merchandise, HVACR videos, hats, these things, really awesome. Black underbill, very breathable materials. They're available on my website, hvacrvideos.com. Guess what? I don't really have to wait too long for the dogs because nobody's home in my house. I got my door open. My dogs are laying here on the ground next to me. Watch out. Let me roll. Come here, buddy. Hop up. Hop up. Come here. Come here. Let you guys see the pups real quick. Come here. Oh, hi. Oh, this is Rory. Rory is an Australian Shepherd. She's sweetheart. She's an energetic nightmare here. Very cute, but a pain in my butt. Okay. And this is Luke right here. Come here, buddy. Luke is a silver Labrador retriever. Come here, Luke. Come here. Come here. Oh, come say hi. Oh, yes. 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 Hi, buddy. Luke is my buddy too. So let you guys see the dogs. I'm going to go ahead and cue up the outro music. I really appreciate you guys. And Mr. Freggles, let me get this last question. You have an R22 unit that discharged over the last year. We know where the leak is. How should we recharge it? It's a pain owned by Carrier in the 90s. You just need to fix the leak, change the liquid line filter dryer. Depending on how bad the contamination is, change the oil, maybe not, and evacuate the system and recharge it with R22. That's going to be your best bet. Don't try to use an alternative on a 1990s Carrier. That's going to be mineral oil. Your best bet is to use R22 or replace it. So, all right. Thank you so very much. I really do appreciate you. I'm going to cue up the outro music, and we will definitely catch you guys on the next one.